All right, guys. Yeah, I am driving the ship here today as we are talking about streaming from handhelds like your ROG Ally, your ROG Ally X, your ROG Xbox Ally or Xbox Ally X, you name it. All of those devices are capable of streaming gameplay. And there's a few different ways you can do that. But before we jump into how to do that, let's talk about what you need to own when it comes to streaming from your Ally. So obviously you need to have an Ally. Number two, you need to have
It's key, actually. Probably the most important thing of this.
well, and the other must-have thing really is a decent internet connection with at least like a 5G router connection.
Upload. Upload.
Yep.
I guess, to be clear, we're talking about live streaming your gameplay to Twitch, YouTube,
Right.
places like that on the Ally. We're not talking about streaming games with Xbox Cloud Gaming. That's a different topic. Talk about streaming your gameplay.
Very good. Yeah, I'm very streaming is one thing for me because I'm a streamer, and that's how I think of that word. But you're correct.
Yeah. So you think, what's the upload speed you think you need for this?
You know, it depends on the resolution you're streaming at, and we'll talk a little bit of that more. I would advise at least 5 megs. Really, 10 megs is going to be a little bit safer, especially if you're living in a household with other people, other people that have this. But if you're only streaming at 720p, your bitrate's going to be lower. You need less bandwidth, and we're going to talk about those different variables later in this show. But you want to have decent upload, but you also want to have stable, strong Wi-Fi. You want to have a decent router because a lot of the times you will be streaming off Wi-Fi, which is totally viable. You know, Wi-Fi 6, 7, definitely going to be great. Wi-Fi 5, fine as well. But you do want to have, again, decent upload and decent Wi-Fi. Ethernet is king.
Lots of good routers for you if you are looking for that. But yes, you can do it over Ethernet. There are ways, and I think we'll probably get to that.
Yeah, we will get to that.
Because by the very nature of a handheld, there's a chance that if you want to do this, you'll be like kicking back on the couch or whatever, and Wi-Fi may be the better choice.
Agreed. And it's just, less cables, more freedom to do in game the way you want. And then the number two thing that you really just have to have is a microphone of some kind. And, you know, this could be a Bluetooth headset. This could be using the USB-C 2.4 dongle with your device plugged into, if you have an Xbox Ally, you've got two USB-C ports, so one for power and one for that. Yep. You have, all of our headsets have microphones. Even the Cathara, has a headset that you can attach for the boom, and they're going to give you good audio. And you don't need a professional streaming microphone to start off as streaming, right? And honestly, there's a charm to gamer headsets. There's like a certain quality and there's a certain charm to that I think speaks for itself.
Well, and one thing I'll say about if you are using a headset with a boom mic like this, like first of all, our current gen headsets, the mics have gone up in quality a lot compared to the gaming headsets of yore, or maybe some of the stuff from other brands you might have or have heard. So the mics are already going to be a step up if you're using something like the Delta 2 or the Cathara. The other thing that you can do is a little bit of equalization in OBS, like an OBS filter with a little equalizer goes a long way with something like that. So you can make yourself sound a little bit better. Once you get the basics set up, you can there are other, we won't talk about that today, but there are other guides that you can go look at that I have found really helped when I've been forced to use that mic.
Good tip. And then last but not least, the other piece of equipment that you must have is you must have some way to view chat. So I've done this, in the past with tablets, phones, laptops, even a smart TV where you pull up your own Twitch stream. Yeah, you could do it. Like you could pull up your own Twitch stream on a smart TV and then just display the chat and sit in your couch and read chat that way. So there are ways to do that are maybe not what you would think of as being like, oh, a second monitor is needed. Not exactly plugged into your device, but some other device that's going to display chat, because live streaming is all about live engagement, right? If you can't read chat, then don't live stream. Just make YouTube videos instead.
You're just playing a game.
Yeah. Just make YouTube videos at that point. Like
it's literally the most fun part of streaming is like talking to chat and stuff.
Exactly. It's a critical component to the whole thing. So those are the things you must have. Now, there's optional things as well. Docking solutions, so you can dock your Ally. That's how mine is used today, and we're going to show that off in a little bit later. There's a few different docks, and again, we'll talk about those. Cameras, you think of having someone's webcam on stream as being something you usually see, but it's not required. Nobody's making you be there and be on camera, and it does complicate your setup quite a bit when it comes to investing in a decent camera and so on. So totally optional, and then obviously peripherals. If you wanted to play with mouse and keyboard or Raikiri instead, if you wanted to dock it, third party, an external display plugged into your device, anything like that would all be the peripherals that you look at as being optional equipment.
Ritz has a good question in chat. He says, like we're talking about internet, the ideal internet speed specs. He's like, are there minimum audio specs that you need to be at, in terms of decibels, or he says hertz or 0 milliseconds? I don't know if I would necessarily go that far into like digging that deep into certain audio specs. It's more of like, if you can make it sound good enough to your own ears, like what I would generally do if I'm streaming with not my usual mic and I'm like, because I'm out of town or whatever, and I need to test and make sure it sounds good, I'll open up something like Audacity, record with the mic I have, and make sure that the distance to the mic is good for my mouth, and that, if I'm doing any EQ to try and make it sound as good as I can. You want minimal latency. I think that's important. You want the audio to match your lips, but I wouldn't get too bogged down in that until you start building out something more professional with, like Jake has with like an XLR mic and an amplifier and things like that.
You actually just gave a bigger tip than you might have even noticed, but talking about the distance the microphone is from your face is something that so many people just don't understand. They don't know that that's extremely relevant, and it's even more relevant in a lot of ways for the actual boom mics. The general rule of thumb when it comes to dialing in a boom microphone on your headset as to how far you want it to be from your mouth, and then you start tweaking, is 2 fingers. 2 fingers from your face to the microphone is the general rule of how far away you want it from your face. Then you tune it from there.
And then then you adjust the volume of your input in Windows to make sure that you're not like that you're not getting any pops and plosives and
I've got friends that got their boom mic like way out here so I can snack on their Cheetos and Doritos, safely, and their mic's way off to the side, so they have it
always something cheesy
so we can hear as much as possible. And then I'm just hearing every sound in their room. It's like, great, this is excellent. I love playing games with you, buddy. Not the best, but all right, let's continue talking about how to actually stream with your Ally. So there's like we said, there's a couple different ways to do this. There's technically a few different ways to do it, but we're going to focus on standalone streaming with your device, or streaming with a dedicated PC via a capture card. I'd say that's the way that I tend to do it here on this channel. I have a lot of moving parts on the stream. I usually have multiple cameras, and with that, I typically am hooking up the Ally into a capture card and doing that. And then there's the standalone streaming. So
which is using your Ally with OBS literally installed on your Ally, right? That's the idea. So before we dive into it, like, let's briefly talk about what the pros and cons of each of those setups are, right? Because the reason that you would do it just from your Ally with everything kind of self-contained, I think is a little self-explanatory. You don't have to have it plugged into a capture card and have a separate PC and all of this other stuff. You're literally just playing with your Ally on the couch, talking through a mic. Really easy, minimal setup. But the downside is that you are then giving some of the power of that Z1 or Z2 chip to creating the stream, right? There is
the encoding is using bandwidth. So yeah, you're committing resources to basically encoding to Twitch. And
if you're playing a AAA game that's like maxing out your Ally, you might actually lose some game performance because you're dedicating some of it to streaming. If you use a capture card, your Ally gets to put all of its performance toward gaming, and all of the encoding happens on a separate machine. But there is a bit more of a complex setup there. So if you're like, if you're just starting out, just do it from your Ally, figure it out. But then once you get more involved and you get more into streaming, and if you're trying to like really do this long term, a second PC is objectively probably the better way to do it.
It definitely is going to yield the most flexible and the higher quality stream. If you like to play super lightweight games like Stardew Valley and you just don't want to bother with the extra pieces, then you're going to be fine streaming with just the Ally. But as soon as you start pushing into anything that has any more fidelity, that's a little bit more, you could play Hollow Knight, you could play some other lightweight games, but you're not going to be playing Diablo 4 or Path of Exile or something like that and encoding and getting many frames, right? You're going to be sacrificing a lot of frames and a lot of performance by trying to stream that locally. So there's a little bit more to that we can talk to, but let's kind of talk about how to actually get your Ally set up to be able to stream from it. So here we have the gameplay, or just the Xbox app on my Ally. And if you were to boot in and you have the Xbox full screen experience, this is what you're going to see when you're on your device. I'm actually just using the right key controller, which is really cool. And I can go down to the bottom here, or you can swipe up from the bottom of the screen. You can either hold the middle on the Xbox button to pull up your test switcher, or swipe up and then go to desktop mode, which is just going to launch you into the desktop. From there, you just want to go to your browser of choice. If you don't have OBS installed, go to Chrome, go to Edge, whatever, and get your streaming software of choice. You could use Streamlabs, you could use OBS, you could use XSplit, you could use whatever you prefer. I like to use OBS because it's the best, right? That's why. Oh, I already have Silksong open.
I use OBS at home, but I also use Streamlabs in other scenarios. It's one of those things where it really is personal preference sometimes, and there are certain setups that one piece of software may work better with for another, depending on the kind of hardware you're using. So there are, again, many guides out there you can go look at to learn about the features of those programs and which one might work best for you.
So if you've never used OBS before, there's a bajillion more involved videos you could go and watch, but I'll give you the basic overview. When you're setting up OBS, you're really just going to be setting up your output settings. And here's a general guide for what we're looking at for the Ally. If you're gaming with anything with the extreme chip, so a Z1E or a Z2E, that means the original Ally, the Ally X, and then the Xbox Ally X. Those are all devices with a little bit more power, and they're geared towards 1080p gaming. But if you have a Xbox Ally, so the Z2A, and then the Z1 chip, those are really going to be more like 720p gaming devices. As a result, you're going to tune some of these settings accordingly. SPS value, you're going to want 60 in most cases, but in some situations, you may say, well, this game is honestly fine at 30 FPS, so that's all I want to do, and that's when you would want to tweak this. You want to drop it to 30 FPS if you're actually trying to achieve only 30 FPS in some games. Some people like that. That's fine. And then you would want to change your output resolution to be 720p, again, on the non-extreme devices.
Would you do that with your canvas resolution as well?
You should, yeah. I mean, honestly, this would actually be, if your actual device is set to 720, that should be changed automatically. But it's just always good to double check that. So, and then beyond that, we're looking at the bit rate as the next most important thing. 6,000 is a general good target for anybody trying to stream at 1080p. And let's explain a little bit about how bitrate works. Bitrate is essentially the amount of data that you're sending out to your stream. This is what's going to affect how much bandwidth you use when you stream. If your bitrate is really low, your stream's going to look muddy. It's going to look blurry. The clarity goes down. There's a few different factors that affect that other than bitrate. You have bitrate, you have your actual video encoder. So that's the type of video encoding you're doing. And then there's the actual preset of the encoding. The faster you encode, it says right here, the lowest CPU usage you have, but it's going to be the blurriest. Now, blurriness is something that you might have to test with, right? If you're playing an FPS, fast encoding looks terrible. Anything with jerky motion, anything that's like fast on the screen looks really bad. But, you know, faster encoding on like a 2D pixely game, yeah, Slay the Spire, like it's going to be fine. There might be some tearing on card animations and stuff, but that's the kind of thing where you can find that sweet spot, and
you'll be able to follow along. Like your viewers will still be able to follow along.
Yeah, but again, like it's all about threading, you know, your experience and what makes the most sense for you. And if you were to be streaming in 720p, your bitrate can go down. So you can bring this down to, you know, 4,500. Maybe I'd say 4,500 is the low end for 1080p, and 4,500 is the top end for 720p, as low as 3,000 for 720p for a bit rate. So,
and one of the things you can do is look up what the maximum bit rate of different resolutions is on your streaming service of choice.
That's true.
You may not be able to hit that maximum, but you know that you probably don't need to push past that, right? Because for a lot of services, it's like 6,000, 6,500 for 1080p. You don't need to go any higher than that, because
that's what Twitch is going to cap you at. Yeah, exactly. So, and once you've got those settings dialed in, really, it's just about choosing your audio devices, which again is pretty straightforward for most people. For me, there's a bajillion devices because I have a weird setup. And then you just want to add in your game capture, which we're just going to do for the sake of it. Capture specific window. And we will grab Silksong. And
you have to start the game before it will show up in that
yes,
menu, correct?
That
the
is
song
true.
was already running in the
Yeah,
background.
I already had it running for the sake of this little demo. And then bam, I could just start streaming and be streaming Silksong if we were to do it all locally on the device. So this was where you would mix your audio, right?
Your Twitch or YouTube password and stuff into the settings of OBS.
Obviously, yeah. So there's going to be the whole plugging in your actual stream key right here. You can automatically connect, and or you can just use your stream key directly, which you can find on Twitch or YouTube or whatever platform dashboard you are using. You can find that
in any Twitch streaming guide.
Yes, there's a million of them in the world out there available to you. But yeah, so this is one way to do it.
Basically, like, it's the same as streaming on any other Windows PC, just on the Ally.
Yep. And a lot of people just take the Ally for granted, treat it like a console, and people come into the channel all the time like, how do I stream from the Ally? It's like, well, it's a computer. You can do anything a computer can do.
On your laptop.
It's one of the beautiful things. But let us talk about how I typically stream from the Ally. Now, I have...
And how I stream from the Ally on the rare occasions that I'm doing a demo on this very show.
I have a pretty intense setup overall. You guys have seen it before here on the stream. And I've actually got 2 capture cards with their own dedicated docks. One of them I use with the Bulwark, which is what you see here and what I'm using today. The Bulwark is a docking solution that isn't exclusively for the Ally, but it is tailored to work perfectly with the Ally. And this is giving you basically a bunch of USB ports on the back, an Ethernet port on the back, and an HDMI port on the back, allowing you to connect to everything. So I prefer streaming with Ethernet. This gives me Ethernet connection with my device. This gives me the HDMI port, which is I have then going out to a capture card, which then goes into my PC. And then my PC is actually doing all the streaming.
The reason you need a dock, I want to make sure that this is clear. The reason that you need a dock for this is because the Ally specifically only has 1 or 2 USB ports on top, depending on the Ally model you have. A capture card, I've got one here, is capturing the video. So you need a way to get from that USB-C to the HDMI input of your capture card, which will then connect to your PC over USB. So you need a dock in order to convert that USB-C port on the Ally to an HDMI out.
Correct. Yep. And that's going to allow you to capture gameplay and audio from the device. You can manually use the aux line and route that into an audio interface if you're savvy and want to and have that kind of setup where you have any kind of audio interface mixer on your desk or in your setup. And this gives you probably the most flexible option. So again, the flexibility here is I've got Ethernet. I've got a Raikiri plugged into it. I've got this going into a capture card, which is going into a display. So I'm effectively treating it like a console. So the Ally is then being used on my monitor on my desk, right? Or on the TV in my living room. And then it's whatever I want it to be at that point, right? It's
also makes it easy to hook up a webcam to the dock
so
that you have a camera or a USB mic like the Carnix, something like that. We did get a good tip in chat. You could also use software on your phone that will wirelessly stream, like use the camera on your phone, and then you can wirelessly stream that as an input on.
That is a thing. It's gotten really good, actually, that technology.
Another good tip from Cheo Walker said they added OBS to Armory Crate on their Ally. So once it's installed, they manually added it to Armory Crate, and now they don't have to leave the full screen experience when they stream. Just go into Armory Crate, launch OBS from there.
That's really nice. Yeah, that's really smart. You can just add it as a tile. Yeah. Okay. Question in chat: why not use the game capture audio beta from the game capture? You totally can. That's an option. It just depends on what your actual setup is. So like with me, I've got the audio interface where I've got a lot of different things routed through it. I like to plug the audio in as its own dedicated line on this. But if you're doing a more straightforward setup, yeah, that's totally fine. Okay, the other option, if you don't need the full power of the Bulwark and you wanted something a little bit more lightweight, is to just use something like we have this gaming charger dock, which is again going to give you just like that USB port. You're getting the power delivery, Basically, you're running a USB-C cable out of your Ally into that USB-C port on this. You then have that one extra USB connector on that, and then the HDMI, which is running into your capture card and then sending the signal to your PC. This is a lighter way to do it. Whenever you see me doing couch, what's up?
We have two of these too. We have
Yep.
this one, which has one USB port and one HDMI out, and then we have the 100-watt gaming charger dock, which was new.
Oh, that's
when we
right.
launched the Xbox
Yeah.
Ally, and that I believe has
An extra port.
Another USB.
Yeah, has one more USB port. Yeah, this is the one
and
that
it
I
can
have.
charge
But
the Ally at 100 watts, which is
nice. Which is nice. But whenever you guys see me doing couch streams where I'm just kind of like sitting there on the couch, this is how I'm connected to everything. It's all plugged in through this, and it's super lightweight and easy. It's just like one cable plugged into my device, and that's that, which is pretty cool. I think for the most part, that covers what we wanted to talk about, other than the capture cards that we have available. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the docks. And then for capture card, you have a whole bunch of options.
Yep. We've primarily got 3 options that we make here at Asus. There's no ROG capture card that we make. The original one that first came out is this one. It's called the CU4K30, which is designed for 4K 30 FPS or 1080p 120 FPS. I think it was 120. Honestly, you're probably only doing 1080 60, but I haven't. Let's find out. Yeah. 1080 120. And this is honestly all you'll ever need for an Ally, right? I've had this device for 5 years now, and it's still such a workhorse for me. I get great stuff out of it. If you want something that's a little bit more flexible and capable of doing more with other devices, 4K gaming and so on, we have the CU4K Pro, which is just like the level up from this. And in select regions, we have a even more affordable version called the FHD 120. We do not sell that.
I don't, it's not.
We don't sell it in the US. Yep. Yeah. I sent you mine because I was like, well, I'm never going to show this off on stream because we don't sell it here in the States. So,
and I needed one, and I've ended up. This is how I do my Ally streams. When I'm demoing something on this show, I use the FHD 120. So, any HDMI capture device will work for something like the Ally because you're generally doing 1080p 60. Like Jake said, the reason you might want to step it up is if you're going to do some Ally streams and then some other streams with like a console or a higher end PC or some other device that could make use of those higher specs.
So just kind of like an extra selling point for these capture cards though is they have like 0 latency pass through. So if you did ever want to use it in that kind of dock scenario where you want to capture but also send the signal to a TV or a monitor, that's what the pass through is for. And a lot of other capture cards can't do that, right? If you were to buy, like I have old Magewells and old, just their USB A to HDMI connectors, those can't do anything like that. They're great for capturing like a DSLR camera footage. I use them for that kind of stuff. But when it comes to gameplay captures, you're really missing out on functionality. So
I kind of want something designed for gameplay capture.
Yes, I think so. I think it's definitely worth looking at the tough capture boxes for this kind of thing because it's going to make a difference for you.
So then once you plug the capture card into your PC, that's just going to show up in OBS as a
video source. Video capture device is the category. So when you're going to capture gameplay, you go video capture device. We could just add that drop down and then you just grab the CU. It's going to be listed as CU4K30 or whatever the device is called.
Or whatever. And then your bit rate, I mean, a lot of your stream settings are going to be pretty similar, right? Because even if you're connecting this to a crazy powerful PC, if you're playing on the Ally, you're most likely only going to be outputting at 1080p 60 inch.
Yeah, generally speaking, like unless you want to go nuts and do something with like what we do where the actual full game screen is a little bit smaller. I do stream in 1440p. You have the option to do that, but generally speaking, the same settings, kind of 1080p 6000 bit rate.
To be clear, you're streaming at 1440p, but the game is not 1440p when you're streaming from the Ally.
Right.
This whole window around me and Jake's faces is 1440p.
Correct.
The other thing worth mentioning is that, again, just to reiterate this, those bitrate settings, if you're using a capture card, you'll be able to pump those bitrate settings probably up to the maximum that YouTube or Twitch or whatever supports as long as your network is good enough. You won't need to play with them as much as if you were streaming from the Ally because you don't have to worry about stealing performance from your game.
Very true.
Using a capture card. All the encoding is happening on your PC, so bump up that bit rate, make it look really nice. It's not going to hurt your gameplay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, definitely want to hit the maximum bit rate, whatever your internet can support at all times, whatever your internet and the actual streaming service supports, you want to do that. But you don't want to go over what the streaming service can support because that can cause issues. It can even cause them to downgrade the quality of your stream because it doesn't want to receive that.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I've had that happen to me, actually. I've been like, why is Twitch only at 720p? And it's like, well, I'm trying to ingest at 12,000 and it doesn't like that.
I tried to shove a big pipe of water into a tiny pipe and
Pretty
it didn't
much.
work.
Yeah. Who would have thought?
I know, right? Cool. All right. Is that everything you wanted to talk about today?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much our show. Obviously, we're always here to talk and give tips and advice on our stream. So if you have any more further questions on this stuff, I know there's a lot when it comes to getting involved in streaming, but I think it's so cool that we can just sit on a couch and stream video games with devices like this nowadays. It's so fun.
This is all really just to kind of get you guys started. And then once you get it set up on your Ally and you kind of know how it all works, then you can go look at a whole bunch of other streaming guides and really get deep into the world of streaming. It's cool to see that a lot of people in chat are talking about how they've been waiting for this topic for a while or have some of these tips for us because they've been doing it for a while. Cool to see that you guys are doing this too. This is only part of our show, in case you didn't know that. If you want to see the full ROG Pulse stream, you can tune in live every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Like Jake said, that's a great time to come ask us questions, not just about whatever we're talking about that day in the main topic, but any of our products, anything you're doing. If you go try to stream on your Ally and you have a question for us after watching this video, come join our stream. You can ask us about it live. And then we also do giveaways. We talk about games. We do all kinds of stuff. So be sure to check out live to see the full hour-ish long show. And if you want to see all this ROG gear in action or see Jake stream from his Ally and other devices, he's streaming games here Tuesdays and Fridays using his many battle stations. And of course, you can also check out our other YouTube channels like over at Asus North America, where our colleague JJ goes in depth on a lot of new products on his Friday live streams. So thanks for hanging out with us today. Don't leave yet. The show's not over.
We're going to do a giveaway, but
on YouTube later.
So I just saw a question and just little side.
Hey, when the question happens,
it's okay.
After I do my spiel.
I know. It's fine. Let me hide the browser capture. Somebody asked about different kinds of encodings, which is a good question. So basically, when it comes to the
ask that when you're doing it.
Yeah, natively on the Ally, you're restricted to software or hardware. I would probably use software encoding. The AMD H.264 encoding isn't the cleanest, especially at lower bit rates. If you have higher bit rates, it might be worth doing, but at lower bit rates, it does suffer from quality, and software is actually probably better than it. But that's my 2 cents. I don't have a
software is going to use up more performance, isn't it?
I think so. You
may want to experiment with both and kind of see which works better for.
If you're hitting 6,000 bit rate, the hardware is probably worth it. But I think if you're hitting at a lower bit rate, it may not be. So that's my 2 cents on that. I've used NVIC encoding almost exclusively for a very long time. It is largely considered to be like the industry standard.
You are streaming on a PC with an NVIDIA
when I'm streaming
card.
on a PC with
if you're streaming from the Ally directly, things get a little bit more complicated.
Yes, it does. But that's my 2 cents on that topic. But yeah,
question about the CU 4K30. Can the USB-C be used to say record your input in a separate system? Like, does it work as another output? I'm not sure I understand the question. Maybe you do.
Sorry, let me read the question. Can the USB-C be used to, let's say, record your input in a separate system? Input.
Isn't that the entire purpose of it?
So
maybe someone can rephrase the question because I'm not sure I understand.
Yeah,
I thought that was the entire purpose of the USB-C in a capture card is to take the console or the Ally or whatever that you're putting into it and send that to a PC for streaming.
Right. So that that USB-C is connected to my desktop, right? And then the HDMI is coming out of the bulwark, sending the Ally signal into the capture card, and then the capture card is sending me that footage via the USB-C on my desktop, right? That's what the USB-C is for. So then the HDMI out, that's only for pass-through. You're sending that HDMI out to another monitor or a TV or whatever.
So like, let's say, okay, so hold on. I'm gonna do a little bit weird demo here first. So like when I am streaming from my Ally, my tough capture card looks like this. It's just the HDMI in from my Ally and the USB out to my PC.
Mm-hmm.
This is all I need. This port is only necessary if you are, let's say you're streaming from, if you have an Xbox Series X at home and you want to stream from that, you would have the Xbox go to the HDMI goes to the HDMI in instead of your TV. It goes into the capture card.
The Xbox.
This goes out to the PC that you're streaming from, and then this HDMI out would go to your TV because otherwise you would have no way to see what your Xbox is playing unless you were playing it in OBS, which has a little bit of latency and stuff. So if you're streaming from a console that doesn't already have a screen on it, that's when you would use that HDMI output. Otherwise, the USB output is specifically the main thing that you're going to use for sending it to a PC for streaming.
Correct.
I hope all that makes sense.
And that's why I was talking about pass-through being such a big selling point for these devices earlier, because they're flexible for that. And there's a lot of capture cards with kind of meh pass-through, and the pass-through on all of our capture cards is extraordinary. Let me just pull up.
It's designed for this, right?
Yes, exactly. But this is this is the C4K30. This is up to, so you can do recording and pass through video at different settings. So this is your capture settings. This is where you can stream. This is where you can record. It's 4K 30, 2K 60, and FHD 120. But pass through, you can get 240 FPS on a 240 hertz display, 144 on a 2K, and then 4K 60, which is honestly what most people are going to get, especially if you're gaming on a console like an Xbox or a PlayStation. Like that's perfect. That's all you need. And then capturing at 30 is plenty for that.
Right. And again, to be clear, the reason you'd want to do this is like if you're capturing video, you can't necessarily stream your game at 240 FPS. Like your viewers aren't going to see your game at 240 FPS. But this way, if you pass through, you can still see
you're enjoying it exactly
240 FPS, and they're watching a stream at 120 FPS. Oz6 says his use case wasn't gaming streaming; it was for TV production.
Oh, okay, makes sense.
Anyway, okay. Hope that answers all the questions. Maybe I'll include that in the final cut down video. Who knows? Surprise questions at the end. It's like the post credits scene.